Srishti, we have read till this point.
Yes, ma'am.
I think we should start from the thunder increased and the wave moved the stern up. Like, this is the explanation. Start from this. Unexpectedly, my head popped out of the water. It was when a big, enormous wave and came upon the ship, and there was water everywhere. So the author almost hit his head on the wheel, right? So even his mouth filled with blood. And then he went to his children's apartment to check everything was fine. And the daughter, I think, complained that her head bumped, right? So we are starting from this point. Unexpectedly, my head popped out of the water. Please continue.
Unexpectedly, my head popped out of the water. A few minutes away, Wave Walker was near capsizing, her mast almost horizontal. Then a wave hurdled her upright. My lifeline jerked taut. I grabbed the guardrails and sailed through the air into Wave Walker's main boom. Subsequently, waves tossed me around the deck like a rag doll. My left rib cracked, my mouth filled with blood and broken teeth. Somehow I found the wheel, lined up the stern for the next wave and hung on. Water, water everywhere. I could feel that the ship had water below, but I dared not to abandon the wheel to investigate. Suddenly, the front hatch was thrown open and Mary appeared. We are sinking, she screamed. The deck are smashed. We are full of water. Take the wheel, I shouted as I scrambled the hatch.
Now we can imagine this situation when actually there was water everywhere in the wheel, right? And the narrator, being the head of the family, he was really concerned. So when he saw even his wife shouted that there was water everywhere and we are sinking, so he handed over the wheel to him and he said, "Take care of the wheel and let me check other things." Right? The decks of the ship, they were smashed, so obviously they were in a big trouble. Please continue further.
Larry and Herb were pumping like madmen. Broken timber hung at crazy angles. The whole starboard side bulged inwards. Clothes, crockery, charts, tins, and toys sloshed about in deep water. I half swam, half crawled into children's cabin. Are you all right? I asked. Yes, they answered. From upper bunk. But my head hurts a bit, said Sue pointing to a big bump over her eyes. I had no time to worry about bumped heads. After finding a hammer, screw, and canvas, I struggled back on deck with the starboard side bashed open. We were talking water. We were taking water with each wave that broke over us. If I couldn't make some repairs, we would surely sink.
Okay, so now when he went to the children's compartment to check whether they were fine, he realized that clothes, crockery, charts, tins, everything was like, floating. And the two crewmen, Larry and Herb, they were pumping like madmen so that the ship would function well. But the author realized that there were some repairs need to be done, otherwise the ship would sink very soon. He confirmed from his children whether they were fine. So Sue here refers to her daughter Suzanne, who complained that she's got a bumped head because of that sudden jerk, which was caused by that enormous wave. Perhaps her head banged against something, so she got a bump on her head. But obviously, there was a bigger danger ahead, so author was not much concerned about that bump. He didn't have that much time to take care of the bump, and he had to take care that something has to be done. Something had to be done immediately in order to save the ship from sinking. Otherwise, all of them would die. Please continue further.
Somehow I managed to stretch canvas and secure waterproof hatch covers across the gaping holes. Some water continued to stream below, but most of it was now being deflected over the side. More problems arose when our head pumps started to block up. With the debris floating around the cabin and electric pump short circuited. The water level rose threateningly. Back on deck, I found that our two spare hand pumps had been wrenched overboard. Along the forestay sail, the jib, the dinghies, and the main anchor. Then I remembered we had another electric pump under the chart room floor. I connected it to an out pipe and was thankful to find that it worked.
Okay, now because they were very much interested for this sea voyage for last so many years, so obviously he knew very well how to take care of certain repairing, how to mend up certain things. So that was a time when he did that, right? Basically, he adjusted the sail of the ship. Then he took care of the canvas cloth, right, and secured the waterproof hatch, which covered the gaping holes. Where there were holes, he tried to put canvas cloth so that the water could not enter into the ship. The hand pump was blocked as rubbish was floating around the cabins and entered it. So the electric pump short circuited. So there was a short circuit. Now, as the water level rose, narrator found that two hand pumps had been removed along with a rope, jib, a small boat, and the main anchor. So he found another electric pump under the chart room. He connected it to an out pipe. He connected it to an out pipe so that whatever water has entered into the ship, he could remove it, he could take it out. Please continue further.
The night dragged on with an endless, bitterly cold routine of pumping, steering, and working the radio. We were getting no replies to our Mayday calls, which was not surprisingly in this remote corner of the world. Sue's head had swollen alarmingly. She had two enormous now she showed us a deep cut on her arm. When I asked why she hadn't had more of her injuries before this, she replied, I didn't want to worry you when you were trying to save us. Mayday calls were
Okay. Now, down the meanings of the words, difficult words side by side in the books. I have been telling you this thing again and again. Please jot them down in the book. Now, the night dragged on with an endless, bitterly cold routine of pumping. Just a second, please. Okay, so the night dragged on with an endless, bitterly cold routine of pumping radio. So they were just trying to get in touch with the people in the planes. When we are in flight or we are in sea we are traveling by sea. Basically, they have connectivity over the ground stations, right? So that radio stations, they do connect to radio, but because they were in that remote area, perhaps the network strength was not that much good enough, so they were not able to get replies of their calls. So which was not surprising in this remote corner of the world. Now, Sue's head, as we have read in the earlier stanza, Sue's head, so her head had swollen alarmingly. So there was a big bump on her head, and her head had swollen alarmingly. She had two enormous black eyes, and now she showed us a deep cut on her arm. So there was a big cut on her arm. When I made more of her injuries before this, so she replies, I didn't want to worry you. So she had a big bump, big swollen head. She had her eyes were also almost swollen, and they were very much black, and she had a deep cut on her arm. So see how sensible the children also we find in this situation they were reacting. So when our father asked her, why didn't you told us all these things earlier, she said, I didn't want to worry you when you were already busy trying to save us all. You were doing whatever you could, so I didn't want to worry you at that time. Just a second, please. Okay, continuing further. Srishti, please continue with this stanza. By morning on January 3.
By morning on January 3, the pumps had the water level sufficiently under control for us to take 2 hours rest in rotation. But we still had a tremendous leak somewhere below the water line, and on checking, I found that nearly all the boat's main rib frames were smashed down to the keel. In fact, there was nothing holding up a whole section of the starboard hull except a few cupboard partitions. We had survived for 15 hours since the wave hit the holds together long enough for us to reach Australia. I checked our charts and calculated that there were two small islands a few hundred kilometers to the east. One of them, Isle Amsterdam, was a French scientific base. Our only hope was to reach these pinpricks in the vast ocean. But unless the wind and seas abated so we could hoist sail, our chances would be slim indeed. The great wave had put our auxiliary engine out of the action.
Okay, now this is again about the situation how actually it was not improving, rather it was getting worse, but the water level was still under control by the morning of January 3. So we have read till now about January when 1 when the situation was really very bad. So January 3 the situation was somewhere the water level was under control. So all of them took 2 hours rest in rotation. So for 2 hours, because they have not taken rest since last so many days, so now it was very much required. So they took 2 hours. Everybody was not sleeping altogether, but there still was a leak somewhere below the waterline. So somewhere there was a leak below the waterline. Upon checking, the boat rib structure was badly broken down till the base of the ship. So the boat rib structure was broken, and it was held together with a few cupboard partitions. Cupboard partitions, and they just tried to bind it together. Now the ship's condition was so bad that they were sure that it would not make it till Australia, that they would not be able to sail till Australia. So the narrator checked the charts and calculated that there were two small islands a few kilometers to the east. One of them was Isle Amsterdam, which was a French scientific base. Their only hope was to search and reach that island, but only if the wind and the sea do not cause further damage, else their chances were slim. So now that was the hope for them. They could not reach exactly Australia, but there was an island, Isle Amsterdam. So if they found that they could reach that island, they would be saved. Otherwise, that will be very difficult for them. And that too only if the wind and the sea do not cause any further damage. If there's another storm is there, if a big wave again comes, then their chances were very less of reaching the island, because the ship was not in a good condition to face all these kind of troubles. Now it was already broken, there were leakages, so it was mended and repaired, but that was not a permanent solution, right? So the wave had destroyed the ship's auxiliary engine. That was a big trouble. Just a sec, please. Please continue.
On January 4, after 36 hours of continuous pumping, we reached the last few centimeters of water. Now we had only to keep pace with the water still coming in. We could not set any sail on the main mast. Pressure on rigging Pressure on the rigging would simply pull the damaged section of the hull apart. So we hoisted the storm jib and headed for where I thought the two islands were. Mary found some corned beef and crackers biscuit, and we ate our first meal in almost 2 days. Our respite was short-lived. At 6 p.m., black clouds began building up behind us. Within the hour, the wind was back to 40 knots, and the seas were getting higher. The weather continued to deteriorate throughout the night, and by dawn on January 5, our situation was again desperate.
Okay. So on January 4, after 36 hours of continuous pumping, we reached the last few centimeters of water. Now we had only to keep pace with the water still coming in. We could not set any sail on the main mast. There was no sail. Sail, I hope you understand, there's a big piece of cloth attached, connected on the ship just at the beginning. It basically gives direction to the ship. So now there was no sail because the wind was really very fast. Very we have read earlier also that the movement, the pace of the wind was very high, so they could not take it, create a problem for them, right? So I thought the two islands, pressure on the ringing would simply pull the damaged section of the hull part. So we hoisted the storm jib and headed for where I thought the two islands were. The narrator moved in the direction where he believed that the two islands were. Mary found some corned beef and cracker biscuits, and we ate our first meal in almost 2 days. So in the 2 days, she found something to eat because the ship was in a bad condition. So, and a lot of material had already been destroyed. So Mary, narrator's wife, found something, cracker biscuits and corned beef. So the family had something there. That was their first meal in almost 2 days. But the rest was short-lived. Around 4 o'clock on 4th January, again there were clouds, and the wind was again at a very high speed. So at a high tide. So the weather continued to deteriorate throughout the night. So throughout the night, the weather was getting worse. And by dawn, early in the morning, dawn is the early morning period. So by dawn on January 5, their situation was again desperate. Means they were again hopeless. What would happen next? They had no idea. Please continue. When I went into the comfort, the children.
When I went into comfort the children, John asked, "Daddy, are we going to die?" I tried to assure them we could make it. "But Daddy," he went on, "we aren't afraid of dying if we can all be together. And you and Mummy, Sue and I." I could find no words with which to respond, but I left the children's cabin and determined to fight the sea with everything I had. To protect the weakened starboard side, I decided to hoist the undamaged port full facing the improvised sea anchor of heavy nylon ropes and two 22-liter plastic barrels. That evening, Mary and I sat together holding hands as the motion of the ship brought more and more water in through the broken planks. We both felt the end was near.
Okay. Now, obviously, the narrator, as a father, in such situation, when you realize that trouble is near, trouble is approaching, you are in a big trouble, and you do not know how things are going to happen next, whether you will be saved or not. So, as a father, the narrator went to his children to comfort them. Now, this is something from where we get the title of the story. Jonathan, the son, right? Though he was very small for his age to react in this manner, but he asked, "Are we going to die?" That was very much obvious to the children because they could see the situation. There was water in the ship. Father was busy repairing. Everybody was panicked. The weather was getting worse day by day. They had almost nothing to eat, nothing left to eat. So they were in a desperate situation. right? So it was very much obvious to the children. They could not hide it, that they were in a big trouble. They were moving forward towards the approaching death, right? So the author, as a father, he tried to assure him that we could make it, that don't worry, everything is going to be fine, and we are going to be saved. But daddy, he went on. But the son, understanding the situation, according to the current situation, he said, Daddy, don't worry, we are not afraid. We can all be together. You and mommy, Sue and I. So that is where we understand the bonding of a family. The little child, he said, even if you're not telling me that we are about to die, we are not afraid of dying till the time we four of us are together. That means what he wants to convey, that we do not want to get parted at any time, right? If all of us are together unitedly, we are happy to face death also, right? So the father was almost speechless. He don't know how to react to this thing when the child was saying, because he was the child straightforward that no, nothing of that sort is going to happen, because he himself was scared that what next the future holds for them. He had no idea. So, but I left the children's cabin determined to fight the sea with everything I had. So, to protect the boat, he decided to heave to with the undamaged port. Sorry, hull facing the oncoming waves, using an improvised sea anchor of heavy nylon rope and two 22-liter plastic barrels of paraffin. So all these things, the kind of clothes or kind of plastics that could be used to waterproof the ship somehow, to stop leakages and damages, that all he did. So that evening, he and his wife Mary, they sat together holding hands as the motion of the ship brought more and more water in through the broken planks. So the water was entering into the ship through the repaired parts also, because they were not, they tried to repair it, but the damage was a big one. So they could not do it properly, right? So water was somehow, from some or the other broken plank, water was entering in. So both husband and wife, they were really scared, and they were sitting holding hands together. And we both felt the end was very near. So the situation said that they would not be able to survive. So obviously, the husband and wife, they were scared, and they were sitting holding his hand, holding their hands together. Please continue further. Just a second, please. Let me check how much time are we left with. There are children who are joining now also. Aman Goel, I believe, was there earlier. Dhruv, please continue further. But Wave Walker rode out the storm.
But Wave Walker rode out the storm, and by the morning of January 6, with the wind easing, I tried to get a reading on sextant. But back in the chart room, I worked on wind speeds and changes of course, drift, and current in an effort to calculate our position. The best I could determine was that we were somewhere in 15,000 kilometer of ocean looking for
It's
65
1,50,000 here.
1,50,000 kilometer of ocean looking for a 65-kilometer wide island. While I was talking, Sue, moving painfully, joined me. The left side of her head was now very, very swollen, and her blackened eyes narrowed to slits. She gave me a card she had made. On the front, she had drawn caricatures of Mary and me with words, "Here are some funny people. Did they make you laugh?" I laughed a lot as well. Inside was a message, "Oh, how I love you both." So this card is to say thank you and let's hope for the best. Somehow we had make it.
Okay. Now, but Wave Walker rode out the storm. They were not expecting they could sail some length also, but they came out of the storm. And by the morning of January 6, the wind easing, the author tried to get a reading of the sextant. Sextant is an instrument within an arc of 60 degrees for taking altitudes and navigations. You might have found that some kind of a compass kind of a thing, which is there in the ship, right? To check the altitude and navigation. So now back in the chat room, I worked on wind speed. So he did everything. He was doing everything on wind speeds, changes of the course, drift and current in effort to calculate his position. So they were doing everything. excuse me, the best I could determine was that we were somewhere in 1,50,000 kilometers of ocean looking for a 65-kilometer wide island. So they were looking for a wide island. Now, by the time he was thinking all this, Sue, the girl, moving painfully, joined me. Sue joined him, joined the father, and her by that time her head was really very badly swollen now, and her eyes were blackened and narrowed to slits. So now the girl at this point, she gave a card. See how sensible we find children here, because somewhere at all the points you will realize that they are trying to, you know, soothe up the parents. They know that they are in trouble, but the father should be somewhere relaxed. He should not worry. And some sort of motivation is to be required when a person is in trouble. You cannot just let him down by using, oh, you are going to die, now it's all going to happen. So the person will die before the actual day. So we find our children sensible enough. The daughter at this point, she gave a card beautifully made to the father. The the front page of the card had caricatures. Caricatures are like cartoons, right? So they had caricatures of Mary and the author, both husband and wife, and the beginning said, here are some funny people, did they make you laugh? And when this the girl read this, the narrator, the father, he himself laughed a lot. And inside there was a message, oh, how I love you both. So this card is to say thank you and let's hope for the best. This card says thank you and let's hope for the best. Somehow we had to make it. So it internally it mentioned that somehow we have to make it. We have to make it. We have to cross this trouble. We have to face this trouble. I think 5 minutes more we have. We can continue with one more stanza.
I checked and rechecked my calculation. We had lost our main compass. I was using a spare which had not been corrected for magnetic variation. I made an allowance for this and another estimate of the influence of the westerly currents which flows through this part of Indian Ocean. About 2 p.m. I went on deck and asked Larry to steer a course of 185 degree. If we were lucky, I told him with the conviction I did not feel he could expect to see the island at about 5 p.m. Then, with the heavy hearts, I went below, climbed on my bunk, and amazingly dozed off. When I woke, it was 6 p.m. and growing dark. I knew we must have missed the island, and with the sail we had left, we couldn't hope to beat back into westerly winds. At that moment, a tousled head appeared by my bunk. Can I have a hug? Jonathan asked. Sue was right behind him.
Okay. Now he checked his calculations, navigation, the compass, he checked everything, and according to his calculations, about 2 o'clock, he went on the deck and asked the two crewmen, Larry, one of the two crewmen, Larry, to change the course to 185 degrees. Now he said that if we are lucky enough, then though he himself was not really he was not very sure about it, but he told him that if we are lucky enough, we could expect to see the island at about 5 p.m. Right at about 5 p.m. in the 5 in the evening. Now then, with a heavy heart, I went below, climbed on my bunk, and amazingly dozed off. Obviously, he was tired. He was just on work for last so many days with a lot of stress and pressure, saving himself and his family. So he was so tired that he amazingly tossed off. He went to sleep. Now, when he woke up, it was 6 p.m. So it was 1 hour later, and it was almost going dark. I knew we must have missed the island, and with the sail we had left, we couldn't hope to beat back into the westerly winds. Now, because there was no sail, nobody could make out that they were approaching. And now, because it was 6 p.m., so he was now hopeless that perhaps they have missed the island and they have sailed further in some other direction. At that moment, a tousled head appeared by my bunk. Can I have a hug? Jonathan asked. Sue was right behind him. So he didn't know how to behave. He was obviously somewhere shocked, somewhere speechless, because now they were in a big trouble. He believed that the island was missed. So the boy, Jonathan, he told his father, can I have a hug? So Sue was right behind him. Please continue.
Why am I getting a hug now? I asked. Because you are the best daddy in the whole world and the best captain. My son replied. Not today, John, I'm afraid. Why you must be, said Sue in no matter of fact voice. You found the island. What? I shouted. It's out there in front of us. They chorused as big as battleship. I rushed on
Okay.
deck, gazed with relief at the stark outline of Isle Amsterdam. It was only a bleak piece of volcanic rock with little vegetation, the most beautiful island in the world.
Okay. Now the children asked the father, "Can I get a hug now?" The son said, "Because you're the best daddy and the best captain." The son replied. So the father was still afraid. He said, "Not today, John." So Zane said, "Why not? See, there is the island." So the father had actually not noticed the island. There was a island in front of them. He just saw the time and he was worried that now they are going to be in a big trouble. But the matter of the fact was that they found the island. So he shouted out of joy in front of them. There was a big there was a small island which with a little vegetation, but it was a real beautiful one. Excuse me. So there was a big, beautiful island in front of them. So the entire family they jumped out of joy, and finally they found the island. That means they'll be safe, right? Now we have almost reached the end of the story. A bit is left. Shrishti, please mark here. Tomorrow we are going to continue from the same point. Now, is the story clear to everybody? Whatever we have read today. Okay, I
Yes,
can see a
ma'am.
thumbs up. Akshat, you can stop